I'm Roberto Roldan. I'm with WFPL, or Louisville Public Media. We're the NPR affiliate here in Louisville. Just wanted to reiterate a quick thanks to Kentucky Shakespeare and to the Old Louisville Democrat Club for asking me to moderate the discussion tonight. Louisville Public Media, if you're not aware, is a nonpartisan, nonprofit newsroom. The majority of our funding comes from our listeners and our readers who decide to help fund our news operation. I believe, and I know that LPM does too, that the core mission of journalism is to inform and empower residents to be a part of their community and to hold elected officials accountable. And one of the ways in which we do that is ask them to come and speak to community groups and speak to residents directly. So with that, I'm just going to reintroduce our candidates as we go down and call on each one to give their opening statement. Just a reminder of the rules: we have 3 minutes for opening and closing statements, 2 minutes to respond to the questions that I ask and the questions from the audience, and then we'll provide 1 minute for rebuttal in the case that there is some sort of comments or anything directed at particular candidates. We'll provide 1 minute for rebuttal, but we want to make sure we kind of try to move things along. We have a lot of questions that I've put together that the Democrat Club has provided, and I know that the audience has a lot of questions too. So. Just to start out with opening statements, we're first going to go to Ms. Dittmeier.
Thank you. So again, my name is Kate Dittmeier, and I want to be your next District 6 Metro Council member. I've been an advocate for a long time, and that goes back to when I was a kid. There's an experience that I often think back about when I was in the 4th grade and I had a classmate who was experiencing homelessness at the time, and he was having a really hard time. And when I went home and told my mom about this, I think a lot about what she said to me that day. She looked me in the eye and she said, "You have to stand up for him, even if it's hard and even if it's scary." And so I went back to school that day, the next day, and that's what I did. And so even these 30 years later, I think about that because that was formative for me, becoming an advocate at that time. It's the reason that it set things in motion in my life and what I would do in my work. It's the reason I went to WKU to study history and political science. And it's the reason I came back here to Louisville to go to law school. It's the reason I wanted to be a public interest lawyer. And just like I stood up for Danny back then, and every person I've represented for the last 15 years, I want to be an advocate for this district, for you, and to stand up for the people who live here. So my work in the criminal legal system, in the immigration system, has been an education about systems. It taught me about the ways that policy fail people in these systems, and it's why I take a systems-based approach when I think about policy and the problems that we face, and it's why I want to be a legislator. And not just a legislator anywhere, but locally, in this city and in this district that I love. I'm running because I have a clear vision for this job that I truly believe will make a difference here. This vision is about connection and community, and it's about connecting people within neighborhoods and between the 9 neighborhoods. And that vision is built right into my campaign logo. I've got some signs back here. You'll see there's the green top on the T that connects the A and the E. Symbolizes connection. And so, as your council person, I want to build that connection, and I want to address 3 priorities. First is community safety, the second is housing, and the third is equitable development. And so community safety is anything that makes us safer in our communities. That's addressing environmental contamination, making streets safer for walking, biking, and driving, addressing the existential crisis of climate change, and addressing all those other things like gun violence and public health solutions to gun violence. The second thing is we have an affordable housing crisis.
Next we'll go to Councilman Phillip.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all to each of every one of you all for bearing through the rain. Want to say first, hello. I am Councilman Phillip Baker. I live right here in Old Louisville on 4th Street, next to Central Park. I was born at Methodist Hospital, so I'm a lifelong Louisvillian, which is now Norton's. I am a proud graduate, a little behind Go Yellow Jackets, and my beautiful children also are JCPS students, and my wife, who's in the audience, is also a teacher. On my Sundays, me and my wife and my family would volunteer for several community service organizations. So one in particular, Dare to Care, where we feed a lot of the seniors that are in need. And I'm also a proud member of the Kentucky Derby Festival here right in District 6. So I hope everyone has their derby pin. And outside of the council, youth are near and dear to my heart. And I formerly came out of the quasi-corporate world in District 6 on 4th and Broadway, State Farm Insurance, but I was able to see a refreshing transition to the school system where I serve as a family resource coordinator at Corliss Taylor in the Beach and Terrace neighborhood. So it has given me a wonderful perspective as a councilman that not only in my work life, but also as a council person, that I get to touch Louisvillians that are in need and that truly want to move this city forward. I'm running for re-election as a city councilman, simply not because of me, because of you. The more times that I touch and connect with neighbors across from each end of the district, whether we're in Paristown, Germantown, Centralburg, Merriweather neighborhood, our beloved Old Louisville, or Park Hill, or our Algonquin neighborhood, I'm finding that people simply boils down to three needs. One, people deserve a safe neighborhood. People deserve a clean neighborhood. And people need and want a vibrant neighborhood. And we've done that. We've taken steps within just a year of moving forward towards the goal. But we're not done. And you'll hear me say we a lot because it's not just me doing it. It's the whole neighborhoods, 9 neighborhoods that represent this wonderful District 6. And so we're not done. We need you all. And that's why I am running for re-election for Metro Council District 6. Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Lyninger.
All right, thank you everyone for being here, candidates and voters alike. I say that because I believe these are exactly the kind of conversations that are extremely necessary for us to build a better world together. When I go out canvassing, I take my literature with me, and I've got as much of my platform as can reasonably fit on a pushcart as possible. I do that for 2 reasons. One, because I believe that every voter needs to be an informed voter, that we cannot build a better world without people understanding what it is we're talking about, that everyone deserves, that there are people that are asking for their support. Tell them, these are my policies, detailed policies, these are my politics, this is why you should support me. And 2, I want to build people power. And you can't build people power without telling people exactly what you believe. You can't hide anything. And there was a comment made at the last candidate forum that was directed at myself and Ms. Dittmeier Holm that the people of Old Louisville might be shocked at some of our answers. I know for our campaign that that's not the case, because I don't change my answers depending on what room I'm in or who I'm speaking with. I say what I believe at all times. So, my name is J.P. Lyninger. I'm an organizer, I'm a Democratic Socialist, and I'm a proud movement candidate running for the Democratic primary here in District 6. I'm running because I want to be a voice for regular, working class people in District 6 and in Louisville who are ready for a Louisville that serves the needs of the many and not the few. I've been heavily engaged in electoral politics for the past several years, most notably as the campaign manager for Roberto when he ran for state representative. I was also the co-manager of the Kentucky Access for All No on 2 campaign. We worked with Protect Kentucky Access, the ACLU campaign. We contacted 1.8 million voters throughout the states and 3 million texts, regardless of whether they were Republicans or Democrats, to talk to them about what was going to happen if we accepted Amendment 2. We raised $86,000, every cent of which went to direct voter outreach, because all of the campaign staff was working on a volunteer basis. We even cut an ad with my sister, and she was pregnant at the time, explaining how it was going to be the working class who was going to pay the price for Amendment 2 passing, that the wealthy were always going to have access to reproductive health. Personally, I'm an old Louisville lifer. I went to I went to Manual, I went to U of L. After graduation, I moved into an apartment on 4th Street that's just 2 doors down from where we live today. My wife, my children, and I, a lot of you already know this, we live in a communal house on 4th Street with friends and family. We've got the skeletons out on Halloween, the climbing the house, the giant skeleton. We're really big on Halloween. I love old Louisville, and I love our city. And I want to be your next Metro Council representative because we're going to fight like hell together to make this a city that's worth living in for everyone. Thank you.
So before we get sort of into the big issues and the challenges that are facing the city, I wanted to start out with a question that I think would help folks in the audience sort of get a good sense of who the candidates are that are running to be the next Metro Council member for District 6. We're going to start, let's see, with Councilman Baker, and then we're going to go down and we'll kind of switch it up so everybody gets an opportunity to be the first to answer a question. What inspired you to run for office, and what would be your top priority if elected?
All right. So anyone that knows me or knows my family is that we've always, from all the way back to my grandfather, we have been rooted in service. I mentioned my grandfather because he was a man who had an 8th grade education, signed his name with an X, served his community, and school was named after him. Until the day he died, he served people. Down to my father and mother, who worked tirelessly every day, going highways and byways, and taught us as boys when we were coming across the street to make sure that we were giving for the homeless at Weston Baptist Church, that we were making sure that every interaction that we had in our community, and that this wasn't data, that these are people's lives. And so that really inspires me. I mentioned before of working in the school system, and anybody who takes a job during the pandemic in the school system, you see some things, and you know that your neighbors, sometimes life is just life, and things are not okay for people. And so when you talk about inspiring, it is serious business. It is a reverence to this role. So every day that I go up and represent District 6 as a councilman, it means the world to me to be able to be the voice of everybody, not only in this room, but outside of the room. There are neighborhoods. We talk about, as much as we talk about Old Louisville, and that's what we're here for the Democratic Club, but District 6 is what I like to call the microcosm of Louisville. We have people under the social economic line. We have millionaires. We have on one street, every religion, from a Church of Scientists to a Presbyterian to a Missionary Baptist to a Catholic church, 8 senior homes, youth. That is what inspires me. That is why I'm running. And what does the yellow mean? I'm sorry.
30 seconds.
Does that mean 30 seconds?
And that's it.
Okay, I know that's my time. But my top priorities are making sure that, again, we have a safe environment, making sure that we're addressing the affordable housing crisis, and making sure people who are in their homes stay in their homes. And 3, making sure that we're taking care of those for people who came before us, and making sure that we're preparing a great land for people who are coming behind us, and that's our youth and our seniors. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dittmeier, Holm.
So I addressed a little bit about why I'm running it, because the other reason that I'm running is because I see this role as 2 things. First of all, being a legislator, and there are legislative fixes for policy that we need to make in our community, and also improving constituent services. So that's making sure that when we have a large volume of calls that come in this office for this district, making sure that we are organized in a way that people are getting good responses and good service. And that means every one of the 9 neighborhoods that are represented in District 6. Not just Old Louisville, but also Park Hill, Algonquin, Shelby Park, Germantown, all of those neighborhoods need to get the same level of service. And to make sure that when we're taking care of needs in neighborhoods that haven't been invested in, like Park Hill, where we had the new curbs put in Old Louisville, and they looked great last year that happened. In Park Hill, I noticed when I was knocking on doors there are pebbly bits of the pavement there. They weren't done correctly. So following up and making sure that when improvements are made that they're done correctly and that people are getting the same level of service and the same amenities as any other neighborhood in the district. So I mentioned before, community safety is one of my priorities to address. The second is our affordable housing crisis, as well as our unhoused neighbors, caring for our unhoused neighbors in this neighborhood and making sure that we are addressing the root systemic causes of those problems. So that's not having enough affordable housing and not having enough shelter space. There were 581 more people living outside than there was shelter space last year when they counted people. So making sure that we have the wraparound services in the shelter space and the appropriate type of shelter space. And 3, addressing equitable development. So making sure that neighborhoods that are getting investment, people can stay there in those neighborhoods and that they're getting the types of services in those neighborhoods that haven't been invested in the past.
So this one's going to be an immediate test of what I said about, I say what I think and I tell the truth no matter where I'm at. I didn't want to run for the seat. I wanted Robert Bell to run for this seat. He's my best friend. He had run before. Robert told me he couldn't run for this seat. He said, no, I want you to do it. This needs to be you this time. I told him no. I told him no. I told the people in DSA, it's not a secret. I was co-chair of DSA for 3 terms. I organized with DSA. I told the people in DSA, no, I can't run. I know Phil. We know each other. Our kids go to school together. I think the world of Phil. There was a town hall in September about the houseless here in Louisville. And Phil walked in right behind me. I didn't realize it. He said, hey, JP, are you planning to speak? And I was surprised. And I said, no, I wasn't planning on it. I wanted to hear what you had to say. He said, I wish you would, because they're really coming for me on this. So I signed up to speak. And I said, the Courier-Journal says we spend $8,000 every time we clear a camp. That we do it dozens of times a month. And that's a giant pile of money that adds up pretty quick. That's a pile of money that we're setting on fire because it accomplishes absolutely nothing. So we clear the camps, and they go place to place to place, but eventually they're right back where they started. But in the meantime, we took everything they owned and we threw it in a dumpster. It makes their lives obviously worse. It makes our lives worse because you're calling about the houseless, you're worried about property crime, stuff getting stolen off your porch, which I understand. I live on 4th Street, stuff gets stolen off my porch. What do you think's gonna happen when you take everything they own, their tent, their sleeping bag, and you throw it away? They didn't stop existing. They still need those things. That's when they're gonna rob off your porch. Phil was right. People were there with pitchforks and torches. They were upset at that meeting. I spoke though, Donnie Green spoke, and we turned that crowd around, and people started asking Nicole George, where do you send them when you clear the camps? What do you do to break that cycle? And the truth is, we don't. We don't have policies to take care of those things. I left that meeting and I felt great. I said the civic process works, we changed minds tonight, I don't need to run. And then I saw on WDRB that Phil spent his discretionary budget on police overtime. Tony Harden got in my face a couple of weeks ago saying you can't say that we took that request back. They put it back in a couple of weeks ago. So that's why I'm running, because we have to stop these failed policies that don't work.
Councilman Baker, do you want to respond to that briefly?
Since a brother was named, that's just false. When I approached JP, just like everyone who came in greeting, just the same way I'd said hello, hey, if you want to speak, everyone has a voice. If you were at that meeting, again, when we talk about the microcosm of Louisville, there were millionaires who spoke, and even houseless and homeless people who spoke. Some of the people who are in this very room spoke at that meeting. So, and then also, there was no discretionary funds, it's public record, that were spent. We tried to, as a request directly from the Old Louisville Neighborhood Center. We're not the first council person to push the police to make sure that they're doing their job, and that's simply it. And everything else is just simply incorrect. Thank you.
When I speak with folks in the community, when I talk to Metro Council members who are fielding calls from constituents all day, the top issues that I hear are gun violence, affordable housing, and really the bread and butter issues of local government, litter, neighborhood beautification. So I want to take those one by one, starting out with this issue of gun violence. What do you think Metro Council should be doing about the increased gun violence that we've seen here in Louisville since the pandemic began? And we're going to start with Ms. Dittmeier.
So gun violence is an issue that I have worked on for the past 6 years. My husband is a gun violence survivor, and I've been a volunteer with Moms Demand Action. And so really what gun violence is a public health problem. We have lots of guns. We have relaxed our gun laws in Kentucky, and that's a state matter that's been happening at the state level in the legislature. And so I think it's important to continue working with the state legislature to strengthen common sense gun safety regulations, number one. Number two is to continue funding our public health solutions, the work of the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, gun violence intervention programs. Last week, I was at a meeting of the Ocean Anti-Violence Coalition in Park Hill, where they are working on developing 4 projects using ARP money to address creating after-school programs for youth, for improving safe place locations in the neighborhood, and other projects. And so supporting that kind of work is really important. Funding services, we have defunded community centers, making sure that community resources like libraries and parks are funded. And I think there are other programs we could do, like a gun buyback program, which have sort of mixed reviews on whether they're effective, but there are certainly all kinds of things that we should be doing and trying. It's a layered approach. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution or one magical thing that's going to work to address the solution, but it's absolutely something we have to work on every level, and making sure that programs are funded, developing new programs, and working with our legislators at the state and federal level to strengthen laws.
So the gun violence in our city has touched my family. My cousin was one of the people who was shot in Chickasaw Park last spring. He lived, he's got scars. It was hard for our family. I was out of town at the time, and my wife called me and told me that he'd been shot. And I broke down crying. I was on my way to a conference, and I just sobbed. I agree with Ms. Dittmeier Holm. The primary solution is that we need to reinvest in youth services that we have taken away as our city has chased spending more and more on policing. We spend roughly 40% of our budget, LMPD and corrections combined. That's double what we used to spend before we merged the city and the county 20 years ago. And these numbers that I'm using were taken from before the ARP budgets. I haven't really looked at all of the different ways that the different federal funding changed the math. But the last time that we had just our money, that's what our numbers were. It's more than almost any other city in the country. Do you feel like we're getting good results on that? I don't think it's a good return on investment, because we lost those community centers, after school and summer programs, reduced our spending on youth services, and we left kids with nowhere to go. These were places where kids had positive influences in their lives, where they had mentorship, they could go play ball, they could work on their homework after school. We don't have anything like that anymore. Kids aren't even allowed to be at the mall, okay? And so when we tell our kids that a third of their time should be spent out on the streets with nowhere to go, and we're surprised our kids act like they were raised on the streets, that doesn't make any sense. That's the obvious result of our policies. That is the first thing we have to change. Obviously, we need to organize at the state level. That's a tough row to hoe. It's a tall hill over there in Frankfurt with the Republican supermajority. But you know what? I think we can do it, but we have to organize. That's the only way that we can fight in Frankfurt. Just like Red for Ed is what stopped Bevin, we have to organize. People power is how we do it.
Just for clarity before you start, minute answer?
No, we're doing 2-minute answers.
Okay, thank you. All right. They're absolutely right. We want to make sure they're safe. And some of the things that you're hearing are similar platitudes at the state level, but we can't stop there, which is why I am the candidate that was endorsed by Moms Demand Gun Action, because we are doing the work, not just saying what we will do. So let's do the role. We are directly targeting, the programs they're talking about are what's been implemented since I have been named a council person. We are targeting and working directly through OCEAN and as chair of Labor, Economic Development and Appropriations, and making sure that I've been a sponsor on several of the funding that has gone to the Office of Health and Neighborhoods. Making sure the Summer Works program, as you saw, this is some of the largest money that to entrack them to do positive and productive. This is going to be a hot summer. I'm here to tell you the truth and how we can move it forward. And the reality is that we have to make sure that each of our neighborhoods are safe. And public safety is not just policing. It is education. It is programs. It is making sure that we're working with every agency and also working with our state and federal officials and making sure that we're doing everything we can. Even though this is a local issue, you all have families and lives. You all don't want to sit here and hear me say that, well, this is a state issue. And that's why as councilman, I have done and will continue to do. And we've just got started. So thank you.
Clarification on something that Councilman
briefly,
Baker
please.
just said.
I didn't name them by name.
Okay.
So that was the rule. Sorry.
Well, he said he was the candidate that was endorsed by Moms Demand Action. That's actually a distinction for candidates that they give. All three of us are in process. Ours just haven't been processed yet. And so it's not an endorsement, but a distinction, and they just haven't processed ours yet.
A distinction given as given.
All right. Moving on, Louisville Metro just released an updated housing needs assessment, and in short, it found that there was a surplus of affordable housing and available housing for people making at or slightly below the average income, but it did find a growing need for affordable housing for the county's lowest income residents. So I'm wondering how you would address that as a Metro Council member, and JP, we'll start with you.
So our affordable housing crisis, the base of it starts with public housing. We have fewer public housing units than we've ever had. What we do have are dirty, dangerous, poorly maintained. The Metro Housing Authority Union says they have a third of the staff they're supposed to, even fewer resources. I'm sure that you've seen the news about Dosker Manor. I've been in there. It's as bad as people say. It's not fit for animals in a lot of ways, and we put people there. People say to their caseworkers, I'd rather be homeless than live there. I can't blame them. I know how to go camping. Okay? It really is a crisis of affordable housing in our city that starts with public housing. You know, we've got vacant homes all over the West End. It's harming their neighborhoods, and we've got families that need housing. We could choose to prioritize taking care of our neighbors. We could be buying those homes in the West End, putting our neighbors in them, taking care of their needs, taking care of those neighborhoods so that they're better served. They don't have those empty houses that are causing problems. The problem is we are focused on taking care of the needs of the developers, of the people who write the checks to candidates. We just gave $114 million to Jefferson Development Group of future tax revenues to build luxury high-rise condominiums in the Highlands after they reduced, both in quantity and qualification, the affordable housing units that were going to be in there. We were told, we need this. You know, this plan doesn't pencil in, I think is what the phrase was used by Marcus Winkler. Without that, that we said, this is Louisville getting left behind on these projects. That's not how Louisville's getting left behind. We're getting left behind because we are not taking care of our neighbors. We've got the money in the budget to do it. We have to reprioritize and reorient our budget towards the needs of the many.
just to make sure I answer the question entirely. Can you just read it one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about, I'm sure you're aware of the most recent housing needs assessment. Particularly, there's a dearth of affordable housing for folks at the lowest income. So what would you address?
Well, one of the things that was mentioned is that's actually the problem. Everybody thinks they can just dump everything in the West End. And here's the reality. We are 40,000 units ticking towards short of affordable housing. Now, we are working hard as council members and with the administration. If you check out the mayor's plan, we are trying to address 15,000 units just like that. But that rhetoric is the essential issue of where we're at. When we talk about equity and we talk about making sure that Louisville is for everyone, why not are we putting affordable housing in the East End and the South End? Affordable housing should be every population. Every child should come in with the same door mentality. No matter if I'm the East End and I open my door, no matter if I'm the West End, I open my door, no matter if I'm in the South End and I open my door. I deserve the right to have an equitable experience each door, no matter what it is. We talk about, in particular, Dosker Manor. The reason why people are outraged about Dosker Manor is because your councilmen and other council people and our mayor were simply out there right in front saying this is unacceptable, which is why there has been a change, and we've worked with council, with the mayor's office to make sure that we have a new Louisville Metro Housing Director. The mayor immediately said the residents of Dosker Manor deserve better. But it just doesn't stop there. It starts in every neighborhood, every part of town. The DOJ report is a big discussion, but what gets missed, and I want you to catch this, are the first 12 pages. That you can live on one side of the town as opposed to the other and have a shortage of 12 years. That in itself is a travesty, and that goes back to public safety. Again, it's not just police. We have a responsibility to residents in every part of this city to do what's right in an equitable way and the right way to address the affordable housing crisis. Thank you.
Ms. Dittmeier.
Well, I don't think I heard anything about how to address the affordable housing crisis in that answer. But the thing, I agree we should have affordable housing all over the city. As it relates to the One Park development and the $114 million TIF that was passed that our councilman voted for, I agree we should have affordable housing in that area, but that was for 80% AMI affordable housing. So that's the top of the affordable housing spectrum. So that's for people who make 80% of the area median income. The kind that we most need that you addressed in the question was the 30% AMI affordable housing. And so that wasn't part of that deal. We gave away $114 million in future tax revenue for 80% AMI affordable housing and a small number of units. So the important thing is to really scrutinize these deals and make sure we're getting a good deal for taxpayers when we're giving away we're giving away tax money, and really to negotiate the best deals and to not vote for things that aren't going to be good for the community. So number two is making sure that the Affordable Housing Trust is fully funded and continues to have funding even after ARP money is gone. Because that funds important programs like the REVERT program, which also deals with abandoned houses, vacant and abandoned houses, and puts people on a path to home ownership. And so my goal is to make sure that we're addressing affordable housing through the trust, and to also really scrutinize the development deals that come through Metro Council to make sure that we're getting a good deal and getting what our community actually needs in terms of affordable housing.
Yes.
Councilman Baker, we're going to start with you on this one. Building off of that, I think residents can very clearly see that homelessness has increased in Louisville in the last few years. There are more folks living on the streets, while at the same time, nonprofits continue to struggle to provide even emergency shelter. Do you think that the city is taking the right approach to helping our community members who are experiencing homelessness? And if not, what would you do differently?
All right. So, yes, we know homelessness is a crisis that is happening across the country. And so One, we're doing everything that we can in a fast and furious way to try to mitigate that. So starting with ordinances to give flexibility to do shelters when there are white flags, making sure when they talk about the displacement of these camps, making sure that we are going in and trying to provide as many resources as that we can. We are not just picking up people and moving them away. There are mental health therapists and services that are talking to people who are on the street. We're also making sure that we are trying to get people back into work, into society. You see that in our budget, we worked with Goodwill, and if anybody saw the good work and was at the Opportunity Campus on 28, you know that they're doing the great work. And so you've actually seen people who are working in Goodwill. There's Another Way program where we take people off, they take people off the street, give them hot meals, and make sure that not only in Louisville neighborhoods, in District 6 neighborhoods, and making sure they're doing productive work. Making sure that a lot of the homeless community who are veterans, making sure that they are getting the resources they need. And making sure that the funding, even though ARP money or American Rescue Plan is drying up, that we're pushing from a council standpoint and working with the administration to make sure that they have what they need to address this issue. We're not going to solve world hunger. However, what we are going to do is continue to reduce those margins and treat, again, every person with humanity and dignity, and making sure we're connecting them, not just from a city standpoint, making sure that we're pulling in partners like Goodwill and also our corporate partners, because we are an ecosystem. It's going to take all of us to solve this issue. And so we're doing everything, and we have done everything, and we will do more to address the issue. Thank you.
So could you repeat the question again? I want to make sure I'm answering it.
Yeah, of course. What do you think of the job that Metro Council has done and that the city has done so far in addressing this issue of homelessness? And what do you think, if you think they should be doing things differently, what should they be doing?
This is an area that I'm not satisfied with the way our government has addressed it. So first of all, I mentioned before, we don't have enough shelter space, and we don't have the right kind of shelter space. So if you want to go to a shelter and you have your dog or your partner who you can't stay in the same shelter space with, that's a problem. That's a barrier to shelter. And so we need to create more shelter to ensure that we have enough space for the people who are living on the street unhoused, and to make sure it's the right type of shelter space. Number two, we need to stop clearing camps. I'm sympathetic to the fact that the issues that it creates for the people who live nearby. But this is about addressing the root systemic causes of the problem, which is addressing affordable housing, which is addressing whether we have the right type of shelter space. I want to explore a right to shelter ordinance on some level, in some way, so that we can truly put ourselves on the hook for giving people a space to live for temporary housing. I'm encouraged by the fact that we are getting the community care campus with wraparound services and addressing those needs. I think that's something the city is doing right, and we need to do more of that type of thing. So I'm interested in making sure that we're doing that, and that we're exploring legislative solutions and making it a budget priority, because the budget is a statement of our values, and I think our values is caring for our neighbors, including our unhoused neighbors. And so making sure that we're funding those things, putting ourselves on the hook to do the right thing, and stopping clearing camps, because I know that you lose, not only do people lose the tents and blankets and the things that they need, but people carry around family photos, they carry around cremated human remains. These are things that get thrown away when camps are cleared, and we've got to stop doing that.
Yeah, I think you already know that I don't agree with clearing the camps. I think it is worse than a stopgap measure. I think it's performative. I think it's done to placate people who call. They're concerned about seeing these signs of poverty. They're concerned about the effects that it has in neighborhoods. Those effects are real, okay? But again, we are spending a ton of money on this policy that does not work. We need to put that money into real solutions. I absolutely believe in housing first. You know, you go to other countries, they don't have these problems. Other developed countries don't have the same level of problems that we have with houselessness. And part of the reason is they just house people. A lot of other countries just house people, okay? And so is that an answer that's going to be completely satisfying on the Metro Council level? Do I think that there's enough money in the budget completely to house everybody? No, I don't think that. Okay, but we do need to organize and we need to reorient our solutions towards housing. We need to reduce barriers, like Ms. Dittmeier Holm said, okay? Not just in terms of the problems with getting into a shelter with pets, with partners. You know, we also have a situation where a lot of the people out on the streets that are sleeping rough are in active addiction. And that's a real barrier for getting into places. We need to have way more access to shelter space for people who are in addiction. We need to have different kinds of shelters to fit different needs. But I really do think we need to reorient away from a policy that talks about shelters and temporary solutions and one towards basic human needs and human rights. Housing is a human right. I do believe that. And we have to reorient our policy towards that.
There are clearly a lot of big challenges facing our city, but we know that the job of a Metro Council member is also to ensure that the neighborhoods in their district are a place where people can live, where people can thrive. So I'm wondering to that end, what is your plan to improve the look, the feel of the neighborhoods in District 6? And you can sort of interpret that question as broadly as you like. I'm talking here about litter, I'm talking about street trees, sidewalks, you name it. So we're gonna start with you, Ms. Dittmeier.
I think the quality of place matters, and what it looks like, how it feels, whether people feel safe there. And these are the things I think that are probably mentioned the most, especially here in Old Louisville and at other neighborhoods as well. So litter is an issue that comes up a lot that people mention, and it's an environmental issue. Number one, so the things that end up on the ground, the trash, ends up in our waterways, it ends up in our storm drains, and that matters as to our drinking water quality and our pollution in our community. Number two, it just contributes to the way people feel about the neighborhood and whether they feel like it's a good place to be. And so making sure that we have enough trash cans. Do we have enough? Are they in the right places? Should they be covered? Because the fact is that even people put things in garbage cans and they end up outside of them again because of animals and wind. And is our trash getting picked up often enough? So making sure that city services are happening regularly enough so that they get picked up. We do neighborhood cleanups really well, I think, in this district, and Brightside organizes them, the community organizes them, and that's really important to continue doing those programs and sponsoring those. We also do tree plantings really well, but one of the issues is and that's going to be more important with climate change, but making sure that we have the resources also for homeowners and property owners to care for the trees and to take them down and to care for them as things happen to them in our neighborhood. So making sure, because that's the thing that I've been asked about a lot, how do we have the resources to do that as we expand our tree canopy? So these are the things that I would address.
You know, litter in our streets, on our sidewalks, in our yards, it's kind of a broken windows sort of thing. You know, you view that and you say, oh, this place, it's not so good anymore. I think it's actually kind of the reverse of that. People who are doing well, people that have, investment in their neighborhood, people that are being taken care of, to have their needs met, take more pride of place. I think that one of the things we need to do is to raise the standard of living for everyone in Louisville, and you will see a reduction in those sorts of things. I agree with Ms. Dittmeier Holm about the trash pickup. I'm going to say I'm personally chapped that we don't get recycling every week anymore. It does, in my opinion, it causes a problem in the alley. But, think that it's hard for me to say that I'm going to make a big effort here in Old Louisville with the kinds of things that we have a lot of direct control as a member of the Metro Council. This is one of those cases where I'm going to say what I think, no matter what. I lost somebody's vote over on First Street. I was a lawyer, he lives in an apartment, and he asked me, he said, I know you get a discretionary budget. How are you going to spend that money in Old Louisville? And I chuckled and I said, I'm not. Old Louisville is the wealthiest neighborhood in this district. We do have concerns, like the metal trash cans. If you get on Nextdoor or, We Heart Old Blue, you see people talking about them. These are concerns for the community. But the fact of the matter is, you go over to Algonquin and Park Hill, there's whole blocks that are missing sidewalks where they're supposed to have. There's people that don't have street lights. There's people that need basic infrastructure. Their needs aren't met. Yeah, they're going to eat first when I'm Metro Council member. We're not going to spend our discretionary budget in Old Louisville doing beautification to the extent that's been done in the past. We have to change that. It needs to be a focus that we are looking at the people in the West End and the way that their needs have been not met for decades.
So let's get to it. That's not a good enough answer. If anyone knows how the process that I have to do it, how I came into office in February, you don't have time. And that's why I was so glad that people in this neighborhood were able to give me check marks. And so let's talk about it. Whoever is sitting in this seat, even if it's not me, should be, one, making sure the Neighborhood Development Fund touches every neighborhood association from end to end. Two, making sure that outside of the dollars that we don't hear done, that we go and get it. So when we talk about Algonquin and Park Hill, if you have driven by there, you will see in my entire lifetime, there has been a brownfield that has been across from Parkway Village. Now you will see, you see that remediated, that's $17 million. Let's talk about labor economic development in that neighborhood, because this role is also a quasi nonprofit director type role. $187 million pretzel company coming right into the Algonquin neighborhood. Got hit with the Keystone Learning Academy, which is a daycare right in the Park Hill neighborhood. $500,000. Right here in this neighborhood, the largest investment in Old Louisville. Again, the largest historic investment in Old Louisville, from the playground to the splash pads to the sidewalk. Let's take a ride down to 2nd and 3rd Street. We know how long two-way streets have been an issue in our neighborhood. You are now seeing traffic slow down. Yep. You are seeing $12.5 million poured into 2nd and 3rd Street that are coming into the neighborhood. Turn left and go down to Shelby Park. Logan and Shelby Street will be two-way. Pushing those initiatives forward, making sure that you're listening to neighbors, making sure that we're looking at transformative ways, how we can touch every neighborhood. Again, we have to be real about this. A lot of these neighborhood associations have a lot more money than we even have at the council office. But every person in this seat, you know in your heart that is not good enough to say we cannot address those issues. It is the person who is sitting in that seat to be able to do the roll call, just like I did, from end to end of every district with equity and innovation.
Good job.
A big part of being a Metro Council member is constituent relations, and I think each of the candidates have touched on that, but I wanted to ask you directly, what do you plan to do? How do you plan to make yourself accessible to the residents of District 6?
Which person is it?
We're going to start with Mr. Lyninger at the end.
So first of all, I think that starts with being involved in the office. It's going to be a full-time role for me. I've a little bit burnt the ships already. I have a contract basis of my work. I'm an auctioneer and appraiser. The phone has not been ringing off the hook since I declared my candidacy. I don't know that that's really going to change. That's okay, because when I'm the Metro Council representative, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the Metro Council representative for the district. I'm going to be directly involved with constituent services. I'm going to get out and I'm going to meet people. I'm going to talk to them about their problems, just like I've been doing for the past 6 or 7 weeks here in this campaign when I've been canvassing, because I really do believe meeting people, talking to them about the problems Louisville faces, talking to them about the needs that they feel are not being addressed, that builds power. that builds the community power, the people power that we need to make change in this city. That's all part and parcel. Our office will be responsive to the needs of the people of Louisville. We're going to talk about what the needs are throughout the district, not just at a micro level. We're going to talk about everyone's needs, what we're going to do to raise the standard of living everywhere, what changes we need to make. Yeah, that's, I believe that we can get together, we can talk about the problems we face in this city, and we can solve them working together. That's how we do it. Yeah, I don't think that it's really that hard to talk about constituent services. They're going to call, they're going to talk, but you've got to go out there and you've got to meet them. You've got to talk to them where they're at. Go meet them in that alley. Go meet them at their house. Go talk to them about the park at the park. Let's talk. Let's get people together. Not just one-on-ones, although I do love one-on-ones. Let's talk, all of us, about what we can do to change this city.
Well,
Councilman Baker.
so a great question. And so that's why systems are so important in making sure we touch it. Even right now, while we're debating, there are 2 neighborhood association meetings going right on, the Limerick and the Merriweather neighborhood. So you can't, of course, be in 3 places at once. And anyone who tells you that is just saying not true. And so that's why our office is taking a proactive approach. Out of any office that's in Metro Council, we have the most staff. So we have Eric Moore, who is primed and ready to answer your call with a 48-hour turnaround. We have Rayvon Matchin, who is there to be able to meet and come straight to your alley, sidewalk, and whatever. And we have Tony Harding and also Kyle Bowden. And then also myself, and you can ask my wife, she's sitting right here, 60 hours a week on top of my job. And I am so glad to be able to also work just like the other 25 members of Metro Council. And I'll tell you why. Because it is not my job to sit in the ivory tower of the privilege I can do and kick my feet up when I know there are real people. And so anyone knows that what anyone in the school system does and what we do with our children when we talk about that universe of public safety, it is not a right. It is an obligation. It's a right, a privilege, and an obligation to make sure there is an example of someone who is not in the ivory tower, touching them every day in a way, I'm sorry, that sounded terrible, but making sure that you are, I think you all get to the point, making sure that they're giving an example of positivity in their approach. Too many times what happens is people get privileged and they lose sight of why they are doing that work. And I am reminded of that every day. When I go into that building at Coleridge Taylor, which you also come and visit, it's a beautiful school, I get to see the next doctor, the next lawyer. I'm reminded of the promise of what Louisville can be and what my purpose and my work is. So when it comes to constituent service, Councilman Baker always will be there. Give me 48 hours, 24 hours. But sometimes there is a council meeting on Thursday. But know that there's someone who's going to answer that phone. There is someone who's going to touch you. And that there are also people in my office ready to make sure there is top of the line customer service to address the need that you are seeking. Thank you.
So I want to be a council person who personally shows up. And that's what I've been modeling in my campaign. Showing up to community meetings, knocking on doors, talking to people, and trying to be everywhere at once. I do go to multiple meetings every night and try to be there to talk with people every night. I see Tony Hardin out at a lot of meetings. I don't see our councilman there very often. True. I'm here to tell you that's absolutely true. And it's important to show up to these meetings and to talk with people and to listen to the projects and the work that is happening. It's also important to listen to people and to understand what's happening. And so staffing your office appropriately is great. We just had the 2 new office staff members who were added in our District 6 office. That's great. Councilman Baker announced he's going to start office hours. That's great. But he's been in office for 14 months. I want to start a District 6 advisory board. That's what I'll do. Can
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
My plan is to start one and to also start youth summits because youth aren't future leaders. They are current leaders and they need to be heard from and they need to have a voice. The other thing is to have a newsletter. We don't have a newsletter anymore, and to have a very transparent web page. When you go on the web page, you can't find, like other council people have, how our council person is spending the neighborhood development funds and the capital infrastructure funds. You can go through the minutes and find that, but that's a lot of work. You should be able to click on that and find it. You should be able to click on something on their page and find what the voting record is. So improving transparency is really important. And making sure that, because people need to be able to see how we're spending those funds. We heard that they're being spent equitably. I would invite you to go take a look at those, because that's not actually the case.
So I want to move on to questions, not just that I have, but questions from members of the audience. They're, I think, going to bring some up, and I'm going to take a look at some of the ones that I already have.
I just want to apologize. You deserve your time. I shouldn't have interrupted you. The only thing, so I do want to say that publicly and also directly to you. The second thing is, the reason why I was so emotional, I guess, is what I would say, is it's just simply not true. All factors, when you talk about transparency and our social media, you can see once a permit hits, we're posting it. We're sending it to the private groups. We are showing up. And so again, okay, sorry. So again, apologies to you, and again, it's just simply not true.
Okay, so I have the first question from the audience is, who do you consider, what do you consider your highest goal, your priority for District 6? And we're gonna start, who did we start with last time? We started with Kate last time, yeah.
Or JP.
We're gonna start, we'll start with Mr. Lyninger and we'll work our way up. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. The budget. The budget's a moral and political document. It's a test of what our priorities are, who we care about. Every year we fail that test. Like I mentioned, 40% of our budget, LMPD and corrections combined, double what we used to spend on policing. It's strangling our services. It's strangling the needs of the rest of our city. It is a root cause of our problems with crime, with violence, because we are not funding youth services, we're not funding social services adequately, not funding health services adequately. We are impoverishing our city, spending more and more on policing, a system that is not working, okay? It's not just a matter of whether or not you support the police. That doesn't enter into it. It's like that joke about why rob banks. Well, that's where the money is. That's where we've put our money. We've put too much of our money in policing. Like I said earlier, the $114 million that we just gave away to Jefferson Development Group was not part of the regular budgetary process, but it's gonna impact it. We have to change the orientation of our budget away from what serves the needs of the few towards what serves the needs of the many. We need a Louisville that's built to take care of our people. We can have that, but it starts with the budget. That's the most important thing. And I'm not magic. That first budget cycle, I'm gonna get my butt kicked. Okay, no one's gonna listen to me. Do you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go out into the community and I'm gonna talk about these things that we want, that we need. We didn't get them. These are the people that don't agree with us. These are the people that are in our way, the people who are organizing against us. Let's get organized. Let's fight for a Louisville that we know we need. That's what we have to do. We have to build the people power. That's how we change the budget.
No, we'll do what we were doing before I come around. So we'll go to Councilman Baker. Yeah, so the question from the audience was, what do you consider to be your highest goal, your top priority for District 6?
The reality is, and all three candidates really answered it, it was public safety. We all led with public safety. If you all watch, and we're talking about District 6, every other week we've had a homicide, a murder, or some sort of violent crime in District 6. And so you can contradict yourself all you want and say, hey, we don't need our police and we don't need public safety. But if something happens to each and every one of you all, I'm telling you right now, I'm not calling the Ghostbusters. So you can say what you want, police are needed, but there should be always balance in the budget. Always balance. And so we want to make sure it goes back to my main platform. Public safety, everyone deserves to be safe. Everybody deserves a clean neighborhood to make sure our infrastructure is good and a thriving one. So there is some sort of development We are fighting hard to try to bring a grocery store to District 6. That is a priority. There are $6 million funds that we have fought in that budget that is in that budget right now. We have another budget cycle. You saw me with the mayor announce universal pre-K. That is real money in people's pocket that will be addressed in this upcoming budget. I am going to continue to fight for our youth, our seniors, and again, this notion that we don't need police of all, it's a fallacy. So thank you.
I do feel like I was addressed there. I know you didn't say my name, but I did not say abolish the police. We spend too much on police. We need to bring back services we used to have that we took away because we spent more and more on policing in the past 20 years. I didn't say anything about abolishing the police or calling the Ghostbusters. Thank you.
Ms. Dittmeier.
So again, my first 90 days will be a blitz. I have a lot of things that I want to cover. You asked for the thing that would be the priority. I would say addressing housing would be the priority, but also getting started on all of these projects. It's not a one single priority, but working on a lot of things. We can do multiple things at one time. Moms prove that every day. So getting started and addressing these things, doing a comprehensive needs assessment. I've sort of been doing that as I've been knocking on doors and moving through neighborhoods. I'm taking notes. I have the people who are with me taking notes. We are creating a catalog of the things that need to be addressed in this neighborhood so that I'm ready to hit the ground. So addressing those infrastructure and community needs, but also working on housing policy, working on getting ready for the budget. It'll be January 2025. We'll be getting ready to talk about the budget. So looking at that. And the other thing I wanted to say, since they addressed policing, is looking at the balance in our budget. Policing does take 40% of our budget, and so if you were paying for something, a service or a good, and it wasn't working for you, and the response from the service provider was, well, you're just not paying enough for it. We need to pay more for it. I think the answer would be, maybe we should question that. So we haven't funded programs that we need to fund. With our austerity budget, we've got, again, programming for youth, community centers. We need to look at refunding these programs, and I want to have those conversations. Those are hard conversations, and that might not be a popular thing to say, but we can have hard conversations. We can disagree, and we can get to a point where we decide whether we're doing what's good for our community through funding things. So one last thing that I wanted to say. The last thing is that being in the same room when good things happen in the city is not the same as actually doing the things that you get credit for, right? So I want to be careful about scrutinizing the record of our current councilman, and that we're thinking critically about whether he can take credit for these things.
I would just address the last comment when we talk about if you go down you're in media, go down your media cycle, the $250,000 for Jewish Family Career Services address the needs of our seniors. I guess that didn't mean anything. I guess the Algonquin pool to making sure that when the neighborhood pools are closing, the $12 million, I guess that didn't mean anything. I guess when the Angela Russell Foundation and the connection was made through my office, and we are making sure we're having an equitable approach to our parks, that didn't mean anything. I guess when we redirected our ethics trial from the ethics trials to ARP money, and it was right in the room, that didn't mean anything. And again, I guess it doesn't mean anything when I am the sitting chair of labor, economic development, and appropriations, not just for District 6, but for the entire city. I hope that does mean something when we talk about a record.
I appreciate the back and forth. I just want to get to more of the audience questions. We have a lot of really good ones. I have one here from an audience member who says they're very concerned about climate change. Metro Council passed a resolution in 2020 to provide electricity from renewable sources for all Metro buildings by 2030. Louisville Metro has not had just that goal, but a lot of goals as it relates to the use of renewable energy. Would you support the audience member says that this is something that's going to obviously require a hefty budget expense, and it's going to require the political will on the part of Metro Council members and on the part of the mayor. Would you vote for something that moves Louisville Metro towards the goals that they've set for renewable energy. And I think we're going to start with Councilman Baker on this one, and then we'll move to the right again.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you're seeing energy costs rise higher and higher. But I'll give you more directly in District 6. If anybody who's followed in the, I mentioned what's happening in the Rodeo or Parkway Place area. They have a phenomenal plan where we're trying to get those folks to net zero right here in the district. And so the folks with Louisville Metro, they are working hard to support the 2040 vision of the city, and we're doing everything that we can to support that. So I hope that answers the question, but yes.
Dittmeier, yeah.
Okay. Yes, we face an existential crisis in climate change. My 12-year-old and my 9-year-old, who are both in the room, are very concerned about this. I'm concerned about their future. I'm concerned about the future of all children and what the world will look like 20 years from now. We're already seeing the effects. I would go a step further and say we need an emergency plan for climate change to address emergency situations, because we are going to face more and more of those. Last week's tornadoes sort of was a good, scary reminder of what's to come. We're going to face stronger storms. We're going to keep facing this. And so, yes, I would vote for something that moved us toward those goals. But I would also support an expansion of TARC and making sure TARC is working well so that more people will use it, because public transportation is a climate change solution. Bike lane infrastructure is a climate change solution. Addressing that in every way we can at the local level, because our state legislature has refused to acknowledge if it's even a problem, but it's coming for us. So yes, absolutely, I would support any and all measures to get us toward that goal.
We haven't done enough. We haven't done enough in our city, our state, our country. That's just a fact. Talking about public transportation infrastructure, the people at TARC tell us that they would like to remove fares entirely from TARC to make it free at point of service. And what that would result in is actually more funding for TARC. They get so little money from the fares that the increased ridership, they get more money from the federal government. No one's listening. Talking about bike lanes, the bike lane proposal that we have here in Old Louisville, it's good, not great. It needs to connect all the way from U of L to downtown. I wear my hair long now. I didn't always. I've got a big scar here in the back of my head. I got hit by a car riding my bike to the 2nd Street Y in 2019. So that little swoop there covers that up nicely for me. But the number one thing we need to do in this city is we need to make LG&E a public utility. LG&E is privately owned by a company that's traded on Wall Street. It's headquartered in Pennsylvania. Your energy bills pay for shareholder profits, and their shareholders are going to keep LG&E on coal until 2067. We must democratize LG&E. It's not a pie-in-the-sky plan. There's specific mechanisms in state law that say that if we as a municipality decide that LG&E should be a public utility, they have to sell it to us, infrastructure and all. In fact, in Western Kentucky, everything is a public utility. You don't like Spectrum? Guess what? That's a public utility. Cable, internet, TV, public utility in Western Kentucky, and their power. We have to do that. We have to take democratic control of LG&E, because 2067 is way, way too late.
I think a couple of you just touched on it. We have another audience question. What is your personal experience walking, biking, or taking public transit in this city? And what is your priority to make Louisville walkable, bikeable, transit friendly? We know that when we look to other peer cities like Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Nashville, Louisville is really falling behind. So what is your plan to improve that? And we're gonna start with Kate.
So last summer when we traveled and took public transportation everywhere, we were inspired again to take another go at using TARC here in our city. And so we tried with getting my daughter across town to, she was 11 at the time, getting her across town on a bus over to the Sacred Heart Model School to a camp she was attending, and we had a real problem with reliability. The bus that was supposed to getting from Old Louisville over there was not a problem. Getting her back was a problem. We had buses that did not show up. And so we have a funding problem for TARP that we need to improve. We need to fund it so that it's available to everyone. We've tried also to teach our kids to ride bikes in the streets using our bike lane infrastructure. We do that on Sunday mornings, not any other day of the week, because that's when there is the least amount of traffic and it feels the safest, but it's pretty scary and it takes you in some weird directions if you're trying to continue on the bike infrastructure through the city. And so as we redesign our streets, we're going to have an opportunity with the two-way street conversions to have public input on what bike lane infrastructure looks like. And so that's a good way to dream and to have a public discussion and to make those decisions about what we want our bike lane infrastructure to look like. And to think about how we connect it in a better way. Is there another part of the question? Or is that?
No, I think you're good. Just
okay.
What would you do for walkability, for bikeability, and for transit friendly?
The walkability also is ensuring that streets are engineered so that they're safe for walking, biking, and driving, because if they're not safe, then they're not very walkable.
I've already talked a little bit about some of my personal experience. When you look at Chicago, Chicago clearly does not have as nice of year-round weather as we do here in Louisville. Do you know what they've got? They've got protected bike lanes. They got protected bike lanes all over, and people use them. That's what it takes. Street, parking, bike lane, sidewalk, protected bike lanes mean that people use the infrastructure, they change their behaviors. Right now, like I said, we've got a plan to connect Old Louisville to downtown with the two-way street conversion and creating protected bike lanes. Good, not perfect. We need to expand that, but we need to stop treating cycling like a hobby pursuit. This is a mode of transportation that people use everywhere else. The working class uses to get around. We need to connect our entire city with protected bike lanes, not just what we perceive as the lowest hanging fruit here in Old Louisville, and give people a chance to do bike and brews and things like that. We need the West End, the East End, the central parts of the city all need to have connected, protected bike lanes. That's how we have bike lane infrastructure. Talking about TARC, we are fortunate. The 4 is the best and most reliable of the TARC system in Louisville. So that includes 4th Street for everybody that doesn't ride any TARC. My kid is extremely transit-pilled and is constantly asking, can I go see my friend Julian and ride the TARC to go see him? Hallie, my wife, just used TARC yesterday, coming home from her classes at med school. But we like TARC, we love TARC, but you go other places, you see what public transportation can be. That requires investment. It's not platitudes. It's money in the budget. We have to prioritize it, again, because climate change is real, it's an important component, but also reliable public transportation is a must-have for the working class, and we are completely neglecting it. People really need a much more reliable TARC system. We took away stops, we took away routes in the austerity budget in 2017, never brought it back. We have to improve TARC.
Councilman Baker?
Okay. They're absolutely right. We need to improve connectivity, and we need to rebuild, be able to have a safe and positive experience for bike riders when they are circling around the neighborhoods in the Louisville Loop. When we talk about safer streets, you're absolutely right, which is why some of you are probably delayed because of the amount of construction that is actually going in the neighborhood to make sure our streets are safer. A lot of the two-way conversions, most of those plans all have, including the 9th Street, as they go back to the table and look at that data, those bike lanes included to address the connectivity. When we talk about TARC, absolutely right. The good folks at TARC are doing a tremendous job, but they need help, and which is why I'm the candidate that's endorsed by the ATU. Because Citizens deserve to be safe in every aspect. When you talk about the personal experience, I went to Central High School, and anybody knows what Central is. I rode the 4th Street, the 4th and the 23rd all the time. Our family is a biking family, so you'll see me, my mother, my wife, or anywhere around town biking directly to our jobs. So this is not something that affects all the citizens of Louisville. It affects personally my family. You know, our office is on 4th Street. I mentioned we work at State Farm. It's easy to come right out of my house and right up to 4th. So yes, public transportation is a huge thing, but we talk about the balance. When we talk about platitudes, is you can't be all in on, hey, we want $200 million for public transportation, $200 million and $0 or $20 for police. It doesn't work that way. That's why we have to look at looking outside of creative ways. Again, I'll always be transparent and be in this role with integrity. Creative ways of going outside of it and getting our private, corporate, and nonprofits to be able to attract, to be able to do this work that whoever's in this role. And that's the only way, again, why I started with we are an ecosystem of how to get these things done. And we are. Thank you.
We have a lot of really good questions here, way more than we're going to have time to get to. I want to be conscious of the time and let you all get to your closing statements before it gets too late. But I'm not joking when I say that there are probably at least 12, maybe 30 really good questions here. So I would encourage all the candidates, please stick around afterwards. Folks, I'm sure would love to talk to you one-on-one about some of the questions that they have here and more. So I would just encourage you to do that. That's the great thing about local politics, is you can get some face time with the folks who actually represent you. So, like I said, I want to move into closing arguments. We're going to do it in reverse order to how we did opening statements. So you're going to have 3 minutes to just give folks a takeaway of who you are and what you want to accomplish for District 6. So we're going to start with Mr. Lyninger.
So, excuse me. We heard a lot tonight about the problems that our city faces. And the truth is, we all know the problems our city faces. Failures in our public safety, affordable housing crisis, neglected public transit system. We could all go on. The three of us mostly agree on the problems. A lot of you have heard me say that I could take my campaign literature, that platform that I talk about handing everybody at the door, and I could campaign anywhere in the urban core on this platform and talk to them. I could do it anywhere. I don't talk to anybody who says, I don't like the idea of LG&E as a public utility. I don't talk to anyone who thinks we're on the right track with our stupid, cruel, performative policies around the houseless. That I don't meet a voter who thinks we're on the right track about the violence in our city. I don't meet anyone who feels like we need to give millions to fund for-profit enterprise when we have basic infrastructure needs that aren't met in our city. So if the vast majority of our city agrees with these planks, why don't we have these things yet? Is it because no one has considered the answers to our problems? Is every Metro Council member and everyone in the mayor's office hopelessly corrupt? Has no one advocated for the people of Louisville and their needs? The truth is, we don't have these things because we have not built the people power to challenge the existing structure to achieve them. That's the only way we're going to do it. We haven't built that people power. We haven't even done the organizing necessary for these things to get a fair hearing at Metro Hall. Last week, there was a celebration of Fairness 25 years of the ordinance. Leaders of the Fairness campaign talked about photos, talked about moments in time from the past 25 years. It was really powerful. People donated artifacts to the archive at U of L. The thing that struck me the most was people talking about the beginning of fairness, the campaign for the Fairness Ordinance starting in the mid-80s. We didn't pass fairness until 1999. That the roots of fairness went even further back to the Gay Liberation House on Belgravia Court in the 70s. Okay? Talking to people that they were talking about their experience still fighting today for queer and trans liberation. All right? We passed fairness after decades of work 25 years ago. That fight still goes on today. I I believe in the people of Louisville. I believe that the people in Louisville want a city that can do more, and that belief is affirmed every time I talk to voters in District 6, people who care about the city. We can have a city that meets everybody's needs. We don't have that yet, but we will. Like fairness, a Louisville that centers the needs of people will take time, dedication, and organizing. As the Metro Council rep in District 6, I will build the people power necessary to transform this city. I'm excited every time when I talk to people who feel the same way. I've got volunteers around the room who have ways that you can get involved in this campaign. If you're ready to take that challenge, come with us. Let's build this better city together.
Councilman Baker.
All right. I had notes prepared, and you know, these things, they give us a format of what it, and I just closed it and just always come from the heart and be real, transparent, and with integrity. The reality is, this is about you. It's not about any one of us up here. You know, you've heard my campaign is about being clean, safe, and proper, and it is. But it truly is about service and how we can all come together. You've heard me talk about the ecosystem and how we all have to do this arm in arm. And it's not about one group. It's not about one neighborhood. It's not about who you pray to, who you love, what in town you are in. It is about moving the city forward. It has been an absolute honor, privilege to serve as a council person. Again, you heard me talk about it's a reverence to this role. We have done phenomenal things in February when my name was called, and we will continue to do so. But I thank you. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your attention tonight, and I thank you for your passion. Whoever is in this seat, which I hope it is me, which my name is Phillip Baker, and I directly ask for your vote. But more importantly than that, even the people next to me, the work needs to be done. This is a call to action, not only from this chair, but I hope you leave renewed, rejuvenated, to get out there and join my arms to do this work, to roll up your sleeves, to be able, so when you see me and my family in Central Park, Shelby Park, Lyninger Park, St. Louis Park, that you will wave, but you know that that wave is a sign that we're in this together. That if you're in one neighborhood association, that all of us, all neighborhood associations are one city, one love, one district. It is about us. It's not about Phillip Baker. It's not about any other candidate. It is about us. And with us, we will continue to do this work. We're continuing to do this mission, and we are going to move this city forward. I believe that. So thank you. My name is Phillip Baker. I ask for your votes. I ask for your support. But most importantly, thank you for allowing me to serve you. Thank you.
So the best thing about running for office, and not everything about running for office is good. It's a very tough gig, but I'm not complaining. The best thing about it has been connecting with people who don't live far from me, who I didn't know before, and who I probably wouldn't have met but for this. And so building those connections with people, finding out about the interesting and important work that they're doing in the community, and seeing the connections that exist between the efforts that people are doing in one area and seeing what they're doing, what someone else is doing in another area, and connecting those and creating a sense of community is the really exciting part of this, to think about what could be and to think about the things that we can do together. So I'm running because I think we can do a little better. I appreciate Councilman Baker's service, but this is a huge job that I'm not sure can be done well if it's not being done full time. And I want to be a council person who has all of the time and effort and energy to put into the work, because I think that's what the people of District 6 deserve, every one of the neighborhoods. I also have a view of what we need to do that comes from my experience. It's a clear point of view. I think I've shared with all of you tonight what those priorities are, because I want to make our community safer and a better place for people to live. But this is not about me. It's about all of us. It's about all of us working together, and that's why it's about community. Because one person can't do this alone. This isn't about being a hero. This is about collaborating. It's about connecting people to each other. And so that work has started. I started that work when I filed for office in November, and that's going to continue on. In February 2023, our Metro Council picked our council person. I'm running because now we get a choice. This is the first time in a Democratic district where we get a choice. The people of District 6 get to listen to us, get to know us, and decide who they want to represent them and what they want that representation to look like. And so on May 21st, you have a choice. I'm asking for your support. If you're not there yet, let's connect. You can find me on my website, kateformetro6.com. I'm happy to have personal conversations. Let's get coffee. And I appreciate everybody being here tonight on a Wednesday evening. Thank you.